Hi there, it's Yoga Bloom Lab online, and we are going to show you how to work with different bodies, different flexibility, and working in Virabhajrasana II with the knee, concentrating on the alignment of the knee and how the knee comes into play. So we are having here my students Melissa from Kuala Lumpur and Caitlin from North Carolina. So as you can see, when they're sitting down, that they are actually, you see this? That their shoulders are about the same height, right? So their torso, right? So the torso is about the same height, yeah? So if we were sitting at a restaurant, we would probably all be the same height. But we have things called limbs and differences in bones. And what happens is when they stand up, we're going to see that there's a differential in the leg bones, particularly the lower limb, and that's going to make a significant difference in standing poses and the alignment of the standing pose. So watch what happens when these gals stand up. So as you can see, Melissa's slightly taller, so you can see that there is some height difference here, right? But do you see what happens when they put their hands actually on their pelvis? Caitlin's pelvis is here, and Melissa's pelvis is much higher. So if I were to use a line, do you see where Melissa's pelvis is? Right? And where Caitlin's pelvis is. So there's a big difference then in the length of their leg bones. So in the length of their leg bones, that's going to make a difference in the alignment for Virabhajrasana 1 and 2 and Parsvakonasana and Trikonasana. We're just going to talk about Warrior 2 now. So we're going to have them take off the chairs, and we're going to show the long-limbed one in a pose, in her pose of Virabhajrasana. So we're going to have her give enough room to her body. So for her, do you see how this is too short? If we were just to give her the regular alignment of, let's say, 4 feet, I think that's about 4 feet, for her limbs, there's not enough room. So if you can see here, what I've done is I'm using the alignment mat. So her foot is in line with a dot that's right here. Do you see if she's in the distance that we might recommend, she wants to overtrack the knee. And that will not be good for her body. So here, do you see where this dot is? She actually needs to move up. And you're going to see that for her long limbs, that when she bends into this position to form the nice right angle, you see a very nice opening. Now from here, if she were just to put her hands on her waist, do you see that the tendency in this pose is Virabhajrasana 1, it's hard to get the hip to move, so the belly comes forward. So what I'm going to ask here is we'll resist the knee, right? And you're just going to send the belly, as though the navel could just turn and be able to see the past, okay? So that the navel is moving back, knowing where you've come from. She's lifting up here. The knee is moving, not over moving, but just staying, seeing where the future is. And we're mindful here in the present, so that she inhales and exhales, that she can come into this nice alignment. Now, do you see for Melissa, this is a nice length for her bones. There's enough room for here, for this femur. There's enough length that she can come here and move. Now, it's very hard to keep moving this knee away, to open the pelvis and to open the belly and to lift up like a warrior. So, did you see where she's taking up most of this mat? Do you see that? She's taking up from this corner almost to the very edge. Now let's see what happens with Caitlin. Because we saw that Caitlin had a torso that was about the same, but her legs were a different length, okay? And so we have to consider for her, what we've done is we've put her foot in the same position. Her back leg is about where that dot is, in the exact same position as Melissa's. It's very helpful to have this alignment mat, especially if you're doing therapeutics like this. And you see what happens for her foot. She's more toward this dot, and her big toe, or the the root of her big toe is about in alignment with this dot. And do you remember where Melissa's foot was? Melissa's heel was here, and her front of the foot was here. But that gave her enough space. But can you see that in Caitlin's body, she doesn't need more room than that. This is a good position for her to be in. And she has here the ability, same. Do you see the tendency is the torso wants to go this way, right? Because you're moving this way, the knee is bent, you're moving into the future. So the same again for her, if we move the belly, as though you can just drag the belly, not the head, the belly, do you see what happens? Is from the belly, we can reveal the groin so that this begins to open. And she's in nice alignment here. So typically what happens for a lot of people, and we're going to bring in this again, and we're going to have both of them in a minute. What happens for a lot of us, especially those that have more mobility, and we like to come to yoga, a lot of us that have a lot of mobility. So the tendency is over-tracking and moving. So with Melissa, what happens is if the hip is less open, this knee will come in. Do you see that? And it's hard for her to track the knee out. Not for her, I mean for most of us. So the alignment that I like is to put the leg as though the knee, the middle of the knee is going to head over the second toe. Because if you ask anything else of it, if you ask it to move toward the big toe, the tendency will it'll come in. If you ask it to move toward the outer toe, it'll go out. So if I just take her and ask her to move the center of her knee, tracking over her second toe, the second metatarsal, that puts her in a nice alignment. Now, Melissa has quite a lot of flexibility here, so what happens is if she were to take a short stance and just rely on her flexibility, she could overbend. Do you see that? Where the knee is going way, way past the ankle. Okay? So do you see again in alignment, if she's not, what she's doing here is she's going past. Do you see that? So she's moving past where I want her to. So I'd like her more straight. Now for someone with a lot of flexibility, like myself, you know, we like more is better, more is the ultimate, more is actually, more is too much. Okay, especially for the uber bendies. So what I've done for myself, for some of my flexible students, is I've given them a boundary. So that what happens is she may want to overbend, but I've given her something to stop. Okay? And so we train the student, we train the body, and then here she has more ability to keep that knee moving away instead of relying on the super flexibility of the groin, sitting in the groin, sitting in the ligament, right, which collapses the whole belly. See how this belly just collapses? So what she's able to do is fire this up. This now begins to rotate and move, and she's fighting with the knee, right, to keep it contained. But she's actually doing the work of the yogi, right? Abhyasa vairagam. So she's working with great effort and letting go of the outcome. So for her, this is a good way to keep the knee in line and keep, and also with the boundary, it kind of allows you to know to move and rotate, right? Can you feel that? Because you don't rely on, where am I in space? So the boundary is there, and she's allowed then to open, right? Open the hip and reveal the groin in Virabhajrasana II. Now, let's just add in Caitlin, who's just going to come in, and she's going to come perpendicular, so we'll just do a little, I don't know if you want to do the other leg. You can do the other leg that faces this. Yeah, maybe. Is that okay? Okay? So what happens now is, if we bring in Caitlin, so she's coming into a perpendicular, you'll see that what I mean by the knee tracking too much. So if Melissa tracks her knee in, and Caitlin tracks her knee in, do you see that? What's happening? Her knee is going too forward and out of alignment. Melissa's knee is coming in. So now what happens, they can also do the other direction, which is to go out. So do you see how Caitlin's knee is moving too far out, right? I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? And then with Melissa's knee, she can sort of, it's as though it's heading toward the wall. And you see what happens to both of them? The belly will start to move with the knee moving away, this way, that way. moving, externally rotating. The belly can do nothing but move with the leg. And as the belly moves, it actually comes out of the Virabhajrasana II position. So when they keep the knees tracking over the second toe, not overdoing, you don't need to move the chair, but not overdoing, and then they come into with the arms, Virabhajrasana II position, they can actually get much more action of moving the belly away and away. See? So that she's moving the belly. They're both moving the belly, opening and revealing the groin, and coming into true warriors, right? In the pose of Virabhajrasana II. As though we could know where we've come from in the past, look forward to the future, so that you could see with Caitlin, she can just be looking toward the future. Melissa's looking toward the future, knowing where you're going to, but right here in the presence of our own being, seeing the divine within ourselves, recognizing, like Arjuna, that we are true yogis on this path of yoga. So, thank these gals for helping us with Virabhajrasana II. We can just give them a nice namaste. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Melissa, for demonstrating to us abhyasa, vairagya, and the state of yoga as the warriors and yogis, practicing this art science of yoga. See you next time on Yoga Bloom Lab.